Hi, everybody. Oh my goodness. I am so excited about our chat today. And of course, before we get started, I would love to know where you're tuning in from and what the weather is like. It is an absolutely spectacular day here in North Carolina. I think it's like 63 degrees. The sun is shining. It is springing here. All the flowers are beginning to bloom. Our trees are budding, and it just makes me excited. I have energy. So let me know where you are tuning in from. Okay, Texas, Greenville, Texas, Alaska. Oh my goodness, I can't imagine that it's warm there right now. Portland, Oregon, wonderful. That is amazing. The Villages in Florida. Aw, Rio Rancho. Wonderful. Another Texas, New Mexico, Washington, DC, Kingston, Ontario, Canada, Sweden. Oh my goodness. Northern California, Santa Barbara, California, Germany, Georgetown, Ontario, another German. Wow, we've got people from all over the place. And I definitely want to jump into our chat today. And I know you guys, you're not here for me. I know that. So I cannot wait to introduce our guest. You all already know her, and it is Miss Toni Lipsey of TL Yarn Crafts. She is an author. She also has two different yarn lines, but in addition to that, she has one of my favorite crochet hooks that I have ever used ever. So let's go ahead and bring Toni on right now.
Hi, hey Elise. Oh my gosh, I'm over here blushing. Oh my gosh, thank you so much for having me.
Yes, thank you. I know how busy you are, and so I cannot thank you enough for carving out a little time for us today. And so we're going to jump right in. We want to get to know you, but I do have one important question I know everybody else wants to know is, how is Mama Gwen doing?
Oh my gosh, she's doing so good. I just talked to her this morning, and she's just working through so many different projects. She showed me this really cute like mesh poncho that she's been making on repeat for the spring. So yeah, she's doing pretty good. Yeah.
Wow. Now, do you guys live pretty close?
We do. Like I sometimes when I walk my dog, I will walk him over to my mom's house because he
Oh
loves
my
it over
gosh.
there so much. So it is very close, just like a couple minutes in the car.
Oh
Yeah.
wow. That is really nice.
Yeah,
That
we lived far away from each other for too long. So I told her when I come back to Michigan, I was like, find me a house across the street. And we did.
Yes. Oh, I love that.
Yeah,
I live near my mom too, and I wouldn't have it any other way.
didn't change
So
it
wonderful.
for sure.
Okay. So you are getting really close to 1 million subscribers on YouTube. Oh my goodness. I'm going to put the link in the chat because I'm sure everybody has already subscribed to you, but we want to help Toni get to 1 million subs because that is going to be so incredible.
Thank
That
you.
is really exciting. That's a real milestone.
Yeah, it's been a long time coming. Like I started my channel back in 2017.
Wow.
So it's been a slow trudge up the mountain, but I feel I'm really happy with the way that we've grown because I feel like
Mhm.
the community that we built is really in tune with the things that I'm talking about, really engaged in crochet and always so like generous with each other too. I go through the comments and people are just sharing, their tidbits and their experiences.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm happy with what we built for sure.
Well, congratulations. I know it's going to happen. I bet it's going to be very, very soon. So,
I hope so. Yeah, we're putting together our plans for 1 million. One of which being, I did a ancestry test or a DNA test rather for Pepper. So I still
oh,
haven't opened the
really?
results yet. So we're all gonna find out together once we hit 1 million.
Oh my gosh, that will be so exciting. My mom did her DNA for one of her dogs, and it was very enlightening, and it made us understand the dog a little bit better and like, oh, well, no wonder she's like that, you know?
Yeah, it's crazy because every time I look at Pepper and I look at other dogs, I'm like, he could be 50 different things, but
Uh-huh.
I still have my money on part Chihuahua. I still think so.
Okay. Okay.
Mm,
I can see that. I can see
I
that.
got dog energy, I'll see that one.
Yeah. Okay. We're going to jump into a game of Would You Rather.
Ooh,
And I always find these very enlightening, and you learn about people, and everyone else play along in the chat. This is where it gets really fun. Um, okay. Would you rather crochet Tunisian only forever or traditional crochet only?
Oh my gosh. While I'm wearing a Tunisian crochet shawl, cover your ears, sweetie. If I could only pick one forever, ever, ever, it would probably be traditional crochet. I adore Tunisian, I do. But traditional crochet, I just know it better. It's more like versatile for me, so I probably go traditional. Oh my God, that
I
hurts.
it's like Sophie's choice. Choose between your children. Which one are you gonna pick? So I
Oh,
totally understand that. Yeah.
I go with. But
Yeah.
I can still do a little Tunisia with a regular hook. Would that count? Is that allowed?
Okay. We will allow it. We will allow it. Okay. Would you rather design wearables or blankets forever?
Oh, um, geez, these are hard, man. You picked some
They
good
are
ones.
hard.
I would probably go with wearables again for the versatility. There's just so many different things that you can make. And while blankets will always and forever be my comfort project, I've really, really fallen in love with wearables. I adore wearing the things that I make outside,
Yeah.
mostly for the compliments, but also just to, have things that fit well,
Yeah.
and materials that I like, and just the process of like seeing it come together, going from like this just looks like a blob to like, oh, it's a shirt. Like that's where we were going
Yeah.
with. Yeah, I
Yeah.
love that feeling.
Yes, I'm looking at the comments. I'm seeing a mix of both here. Blankets, wearables, both or nothing, someone said, like, yeah, I refuse to choose. Yeah,
Yeah, and
yeah,
that's
yeah,
fun.
that's interesting. Um, yeah, I would probably have to say blankets. I
Yeah.
love a granny square blanket. I just can't get away from them. There's just something about granny squares to me that just although I am making a granny square cardigan right now too, so
See? And that's the evolution, right? Like
yeah,
you start with, a motif or something in a blanket and you're like, "Ooh, that would make a really cute top or that would make a really cute sweater." And that's like exactly where it went for me. I'm working on blankets almost exclusively for years. And then I'm like, "Oh, this stitch would be really nice in a sweater." And then it just kind of takes off from there.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay, next one. I think I know the answer to this one, but I'm really curious what you're going to say. Would
Okay.
you rather work with neutral palettes or bold color palettes?
Ooh, bold all
Yes,
every day. I mean, obviously, I'm a color girl.
that's what I
I
thought.
love the neutral as an accent. Obviously, I end up using it a lot in my designs, but the neutrals are meant to bring attention to the color. That's the
Yeah.
whole.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Yes, I always look at your color choices and I'm like, I really do think you have a real gift for it because you put together colors that I would look at and go, "Of course you can't put those colors together," and then you do, and I'm like, "Whoa." You'll
Oh,
throw a hot pink into something that I would have never, ever thought would
definitely.
look fantastic, but it just does.
Yeah. What's interesting is like it hasn't always been like that. Like if you go back to the early days of TL Yarn Crafts, it was a lot of neutrals because it was safe, it was easy, it was selling really well. It was like super popular when
Yeah,
I started out in like 2013, 2015. But more recently, I've upped my education around color. So like
that's
understand the difference between, brights and deep colors and neutrals and neons and like how to incorporate a pop of color. I think it just really comes with practice, with being like intentional around, what is the feeling I want to have after I put these colors together. And I think also too, over the years, I've kind of developed like a core color palette, like certain colors I keep coming back to. So then
yeah.
I can experiment with like throwing in a hot pink or, throwing in, a chartreuse or throwing in like a really deep like eggplant purple and kind
Mm,
of seeing what that does with the colors I normally gravitate towards. So definitely getting a bit more adventurous, opening myself up to color in recent years.
yeah, I mean, that's like an artist's eye to
Mhm.
see color and to be able to play with it, and that's so interesting. I figured you were gonna pick bold. I didn't think you were going to go with the neutrals.
All the colors.
All the colors. Okay. This is one that I find interesting is would you rather film YouTube videos or write patterns?
Oh my gosh, I feel like I can't do one without the other. At this point, like they're the same. Well, if I had the choice, right? If I could like turn the clock backwards and dedicate myself to one or the other, it would probably be the videos. I really, really enjoy. I know it's. If you would have asked me yesterday, I might have said patterns, but today I'm feeling the videos because it's a really exciting way for me to engage with my audience. And it also gives me a chance to have like multiple different conversations. You know,
Mm,
one week I can talk about my favorite baby blanket patterns. The next week we can talk about hooks. The following week I can make a sweater start to finish. You know, I could do Q&As. There's just so much
yeah.
opportunity with video. And I can have like this really well-rounded crafty conversation and kind of dive into all the things that interest me. Whereas with patterns, I mean, obviously my first love is crochet, but I have found a lot of satisfaction with just making things for myself and then telling people about it. Everything doesn't necessarily have to be like a fully written out pattern.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think the way that I've been releasing content has evolved a bit over time, and I'm trying to get to a place where I'm making sure I enjoy every step of the process. And honestly,
Mhm.
writing patterns, not my favorite part of the process. I
Yeah.
love making the thing, but like the technical writing aspect,
Mhm.
she's a little tricky. It's a little tricky
Oh, I
sometimes.
can only imagine, especially with wearables and grading and all of that. It's like
It's a lot. It's like I have a golden calculator that I keep within arm's reach always, just so if I ever need to like check my math or I'm working on
yeah,
grading, whatever, it's always there. But yeah, if I could choose though, I would like almost exclusively do video. That would be my choice.
yeah. I
Yeah.
find that really interesting. Um,
Mhm.
I agree, and of course, you write way more patterns than I do, and mine are very simple little amigurumi projects, but, I find the videos are there's so much creativity that goes into it,
Mhm.
and it really is endless, and it's, yeah, there's something really wonderful about with video about being able to connect with people, whereas, somebody buys your pattern or they find it for free on your website, there just isn't that same connection,
Exactly.
and
Yeah.
that is the really magical thing about YouTube. So, I keep forgetting to look at the chat.
We're just over here gabbing, you know. We're
We're
just
just talking and yeah, um, yeah, so, okay. All right, this one is an interesting question as well. And, would you rather crochet with luxury yarn only or budget yarn only?
ooh, go Lux. I mean, if you can, go all the way. Give me your alpacas and your
Yeah.
cashmeres. Yeah. You know, and what's lovely though is like there's such a range in what is considered like a luxe yarn,
Yeah.
right? Getting like a long staple length cotton, like a Pima cotton, that's considered
Mhm.
a luxury yarn, but like it's still something that's accessible and like usable and very versatile as well. So I would go luxury because I think it's gonna, I don't know, that's I feel like that's a full expression of like
Yeah.
pony, really. Like it's just
Right.
what I lean towards more recently, right?
Yeah.
And I
Mhm.
feel like most projects you can make them with like a luxe yarn and a budget yarn and still get a
Mhm.
really gorgeous product. But I've become quite obsessed with like the texture of things, and
Oh,
I just
yeah.
love how those luxury fibers feel like against my skin, you know. I mean, I'm a little snobby in that way. I'll be honest. Like,
I
I,
get it.
mhm.
Well, and, I've done a little more research and I'm trying to learn more about fiber types and what are the properties of them and what makes wool good for this kind of a project and maybe alpaca wouldn't work for that and why those fibers are different. And that to me is absolutely fascinating. Just animal fibers, plant fibers. There's just so much to learn, you know?
Is, and even within those categories, right, there's like so many ways you can break it down. Like I was watching a reel just today about like all the different types of cotton, and you know, you have your workhorse kind of basic cotton, which is probably what our like lily sugar and cream is made out of, but then you have these longer staple length cottons, and there are multiple different types that fall under that category, kind of depending on what region they come from, and that's what affects the price. It affects like how it takes the dye. It affects, you know, how you can launder it. So like when you really start to nerd out about fiber, I think that's when you can walk into a yarn store and like, I don't know, your brain just starts like whirring because it does dictate what types of projects you'll make with certain yarns. So, you know, when I say that I like luxe fibers, it's, you know, similar to what you were saying. Once you get a little bit more educated about it, it becomes kind of exciting. You just want to try everything.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and I would love to see that whole process of Well, I wish I could have my own sheep and then see that whole process from, raising the sheep to shearing the sheep and how that turns into yarn. That would be there's an actual book by Clara Parks called Vanishing Fleece, and
Yes.
that one is so fascinating. I highly recommend it if you are a nerd like I am and you just wanna know that process from start to finish. She's an amazing educator about all types of fibers.
Definitely, and I think if you wanna become a nerd about fiber, start with that book. Like, she
Yeah,
breaks it down in a way that, like, even if you don't know all the lingo and everything, she makes it really, really clear, and I think that you can't help but be a bit fascinated about the parts of the process that we don't typically see. Like, she
mhm.
took the time to, like, go through every part of it and really, like, explain that process, so it's
Yeah,
really great book, great
it
recommendation.
is. Yeah, it is. Okay, next question is, would you rather, and I think I know the answer to this one too, is rather crochet with tapered hooks or inline hooks?
Oh, inline all day, every day. And it's not even like I am not a tapered hook hater. I literally cannot use them. Like my hands
Oh, okay.
make the motion to use them. I have tried, especially for like demos and hook reviews and things. I have tried to use them and I literally can't. So it's either inline or hybrid hooks for me all day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, and I mean, speaking of hooks, I'm not even just saying this because you're here. I have talked about your hooks. They really are magnificent.
Thank
Everybody who's asked me are like, "Okay, how are they really?" I'm like, "No, no, no. They're really, really amazing hooks." And I'm not normally an inline person, so at first when I went to use these, I thought, "I don't know how I'm gonna do," and they've been like you can tell when something is actually designed by someone who uses these products instead of it being a major corporation who just designs whatever. You
Yes. Yeah.
when it's that attention to detail and all the things that you actually really want in a crochet hook, yeah, I have one missing out of here because it's with a project right now.
Wow, that is so very nice to hear. Because like, I mean, obviously, I respect you so much as a crocheter and as a designer, so the fact that you enjoy my hooks really means a lot to me. Like, when I was making them, I definitely had everybody else in mind, but I'll be honest, I was like, "I wanna make some hooks that I want to
Yeah,
use all
right.
the time." So,
Yeah,
like, there were so many decisions around, like, how tall is the hook head? What's the space between the hook head and the thumb rest? How long are the hooks? How wide is this part? Like, they're
yeah,
like, looking at a schematic of a crochet hook is like is it's otherworldly, honestly. It's just something I'd never experienced before, but that kind of attention to detail makes a lot of difference because, you'll hear people say, "Well, the thumb rest is too far from the hook head." So I think about stuff like that, like,
yeah.
yeah, maybe it works for me because I have larger hands or I have a bigger range of motion when I crochet, but what about somebody who's working with, like, little thin yarns or amigurumi artists? What do
Mhm.
they need in a hook? So there was a lot to consider. So I'm really glad that you enjoy the product we
Yes,
with.
absolutely, and I have smaller hands, and so when I saw them, I'm like, "Whoa, those are some big hooks," but they fit so perfectly. I really do love everything about them, so
Oh, I'm so glad. I'm so glad to hear that. Thank you.
okay, last would you rather.
Okay.
Would you rather follow trends or set them?
Can I make the choice to be timeless?
You can.
Can I do
You
that? Like, that's the goal, is to, like, whether you come across my pattern in 2026 or 2056, like, I want it to be something that, with the right yarn and the right styling, this is something that I'm still happy to wear or to use or to gift.
Mhm.
The trends, I've always struggled against trends because they come and go, and especially now, trends
Yeah,
are, like, here for a second, and
yeah,
even if you set a trend, it's not a thing 2 months from now.
right,
So,
right.
for all the time and the effort it takes not only to design something, but then to turn around and make it, I don't wanna touch a trend. I'm not unless it's like a fiber trend, like, maybe I'm making something I love, but now I'm doing it in mohair, or now I'm doing
Mm,
it, boucle or something. That's a fun experiment. I absolutely
mm,
love that, like, switching different yarns in for different projects. But, like, I don't know. We've seen trends come and go, dozens and dozens of them in the last
mhm.
few years, and I just don't want all that effort to be forgotten. So, no, we
Yeah.
want timeless over here.
I Yeah, that is so true because trends really are moving at a pace that I have never seen them before. Like,
Yeah.
I just stopped wearing skinny jeans, and I've got the wide leg jeans, and now I hear we're getting away from those, and I'm like, "Wait a minute. We
Right, I was like, I just got 'em.
wait, these
Right.
are my new jeans. Why are we what is happening here?"
Never be able to get those skinny jeans out of my closet. Like those, we are married. We are joined at the hip now. But I did get some wide leg jeans, though I have not tried the barrel leg. I don't know if that's for me.
No.
I don't know if that's for tall girls. I don't know.
I tried a pair and I looked insane.
I was like, I don't ride horses. So why am I supposed to look like this? I do not understand. But like, but yeah, it's the same thing for crochet, right? Like there's certain things that will pop up and like maybe it makes sense for a moment. But it's particularly for designers, I feel like we have a slightly different eye, or people who've been in this industry for a really long time. The stuff that's going to stick around and the stuff that's not. Like
Mhm.
what's worth making and what isn't. And I don't want to be like a Debbie Downer as far as trends. If you see a project pop up and 1,000 people have already made it, and you're like, I want to make that too, go for it. It's your young, it's your time, do whatever you want.
Yeah.
But as far as the things that I like to produce, I want it to be something you can make over and over again, something you can make now or 10 years later, something you can switch up yarns for. Like I consider a lot of those things when I'm making a design because I want people to always love what they make.
Mhm.
Yeah,
And I think that is so true, that when you find your own style, when you own it and this is who I am, then it's kind of like, I don't really care what trends come in and out.
absolutely.
That's I may choose from some of those things, but this is who I am, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah.
That's kind of how I am with amigurumi, that so many people love plushies and chenille yarns, and I think they're so cute, they're so amazing, and they are not for me. And that's okay.
Yeah,
Do
totally.
appreciate them and love them and think they're so cute, but that's not who I am, and I wouldn't be genuine if I started making projects with that. Now, I will say I can change my mind at some point if I'm ever like, "I find the perfect thing," but for right now,
For now.
I always hate saying I'll never do something because that's almost a guarantee that I will do it.
Yeah, at some point, right? It's like, every now and then a trend pops up and it's kind of irresistible, right? Like I will confess, I got on the skinny scarf trend and I released my Bernie scarf last year and I did it in 3 different sizes and I did it in all these different yarns and like, but that was more so because I saw the skinny scarf not as like this fleeting trend, but as something that could be used season after season, that could be styled, as your full scarf or as like a little accessory. So even
Mhm,
when those trends pop up, as a designer, as a maker, if you can see a way for it to really incorporate into your larger style, then yeah, go for it. But, I mean, one trend that often comes up for me when I think about trends is like the mermaid tails. Do you remember?
yeah.
Oh my God. I was like, as soon as I saw them, I was like, are you really about to put in all that work and effort?
Ooh,
One, for a kid who's going to outgrow it in like a year or two, let's
right.
be honest.
Yeah.
Um, and two, who are you giving it to after that? Who the, mm-mm,
Yeah.
mm-mm. So there are certain trends that make sense. And then there are certain ones where I'm like, I'm going to let that one pass me right on by.
No, I'm sure all the grandmas made the mermaid tails for granddaughters, they made them, but they made a gazillion of them. Okay. So, I would love to know, I don't know if I know the answer to this, but how did crochet first come into your life?
Ooh, so we got to go way, way, way
Yeah.
back. So when I was a teenager, over the summers, we did a thing in my house where me and my two brothers, we would like go about. Like my older brother, this particular summer, went to go stay with his dad in New York. My younger brother went to go stay with our grandma in another part of Michigan. And so I happened to be home. I'm home with mom. Dad's off, working or something. And I'm just kind of like flitting around, getting on my mom's nerves, just like running around her feet or whatever. So I'm sure she got a little sick of me and finally decided to teach me how to crochet that summer.
Okay.
And I don't even think it was a formal thing like, hey, we're going to learn how to crochet today. It was, here's this granny square, go like this, and then keep going like that until there's no yarn left. Like that was the instruction. I didn't know what I was making. I didn't know what a granny square was. She didn't like tell me about hooks or anything like that. She just was like, do this thing and like get out of my face. So we spent that summer crocheting together, which was like really amazing because it's one of the first opportunities I had to like have my mom all to myself,
Yeah.
to like talk to her about this craft. And I knew she was a very crafty person. She knit and crochet all the time. She would sew clothes for us and, you know, make curtains and all that stuff. So she was very crafty in that way, but like I'd never engaged with that side of her before. So it was really cool to get to know her. And on top of that, at that age, I wasn't like a very creative child. I was very into like reading or hanging out with friends, riding bikes, you know, normal kid stuff. But like I didn't have something, I didn't create anything. I didn't paint. I didn't really color or anything like that. So this was one of my first forays into like taking some materials and turning them into something else. So over the course of that summer, I made a blanket, gifted it to my brother once he got back home. Eventually, I think it made it to the Goodwill or whatever. But yeah, that was kind of like my first time kind of putting my hands on some crochet and making a whole project, which ended up being this truly, truly hideous blanket. Are you familiar with like the Red Heart Super Saver, the camo yarn?
Yeah.
Oh gosh. I don't think that yarn, like they probably just did a lot of like 10 million skeins back that year. Cause I promise you, when I go and touch that yarn, it feels exactly how it did when I first crocheted with it. And I'm sure between, you know, my overconfidence and probably making plenty of mistakes and also this absolutely awful yarn, this blanket she had some character. We'll say that. So, but you know, I kind of left that project with a lot of confidence. Like, yeah, now I can say I crocheted a blanket. Like that's really, really exciting. But you know, I ended up putting crochet down for like a decade and picked it back up in my 20s. You know, and so yeah, I first started crocheting as a teenager.
Okay.
Yeah.
That is so hysterical that your first project was with camo yarn, you know?
Which makes a lot of sense. Both of my parents were in the military.
Okay.
Yeah, so my mom was like, and I'm sure that yarn had been sitting in her stash for a really long time as well. So it was totally fine for me to make all the mistakes with it.
Yeah. Use this one.
Right.
Yeah. I love that. But then when did this start to morph into like, hey, this isn't just going to be a hobby for me anymore?
Mm-hmm. Well, so like I said, I put crochet down for about a decade and I came back around to it when I was 23. And I remember that really distinctly because I had just graduated from college. I had moved out of Michigan and down to Ohio. I had just gotten married and I was having a really, really hard time finding a job. So I graduated from college in 2010. So we're like still dealing with, you know, the residuals of the recession from 2008. And I cannot find a job for the life of me because I got out of school and people were like, yeah, you have a degree. Everybody wants somebody with a degree. Girl, there was too many people with degrees. There was too many people, not enough jobs. So I wanted to get back into crafting as just to have something to do because like for anybody who's been unemployed for a while, like it can feel very much like this limbo, you know, you're just feeling unproductive and, you know, just kind of in a boat without a paddle. So I was like, I need something to keep me busy in between applying for jobs and going to interviews and blah, blah, blah. So I walk into Michael's and I was like, I'm going to pick up a craft. And I start out in the beading section. I was like, ooh, I'm going to make some bracelets. If anybody remembers, it's like 2010, 2011, and the Chan Lu bracelets were incredibly popular. Okay. So they were like these beaded bracelets with like these leather accents. They were all over Etsy, all over. So I was like, ooh, I'm gonna make these bracelets. I'm gonna start me an Etsy shop and I'm gonna make $1 million. So I go home and I made a couple bracelets and they were cute and all, but like the biggest issue was like the beads would just end up everywhere. Like, feet, they're rolling all over the floor. They're in my slippers. It was awful. It was like too many tiny parts. This isn't gonna work. So I took back what I could to Michael's. I'm wandering around a little bit more and I kind of turn and I'm in the yarn aisle. And I have that moment and I still get it when I walk into like a new yarn store of just like, wow, like, oh my gosh, I'm about to get in some trouble. Like I can't, you know, so I walk down the aisle and I'm just having this like nostalgic moment of like, you know what, I remember the warm, cozy, fuzzy feeling I had the last time I was working with yarn. And I was like, maybe we can do that again. We can recreate that. So I start picking up yarns, anything that's pretty, anything that's the right color, fuzzy stuff, thick stuff, thin stuff. I don't know what I'm doing. I grab some hooks, I go home, and I get like some library books, I get some magazines. So I'm like trying to teach myself to crochet again, because essentially all I know is how to make a granny square.
Yeah.
But I don't even actually like know the basics. So I'm learning single crochets, doubles, trebles. I'm learning about different hook sizes, what goes with which yarn. I'm like getting a feel for fiber and how that impacts price, because like as a beginner, you don't necessarily know like different fibers cost different prices, or what's available at Michael's and what you have to go find somewhere else. So I'm learning a lot, and I'm crocheting all these things. And I started making stuff for friends and family for like a good year or so. And then the next year rolls around and they're like, hey girl, I still have that hat you made me last year. Like, I'm good. I don't need anything else. So I'm like, okay, well, I'm going to keep making these things. So what do I do with them? And that's when I got the bright idea to start selling at craft shows. Cause I was like, well, I was donating some stuff to charity, giving what I could to friends and family, but there was just still too much stuff. So I started selling at craft shows. This would have been maybe like winter 2011, maybe 2012. And even then, it wasn't really a business. What really made it a business, and I'll kind of give you the short story, is I got like really into selling at craft shows. I was enjoying it. And I had also been a server, a waitress when I was younger. So like having cash was always really exciting. So like when I was selling at the craft shows, like having cash again, I was like, ooh, this is nice. So I got to a point where I was starting to curate the products that were in my booth, and I wanted a very particular type of hat. So this is like 2015, 2016. And like those really slouchy hats, very popular. So I was like, I want a slouchy hat with like a textured fabric. I want a thick ribbed brim. I want a big old pom-pom on the back. Like I was very specific about what I want. And I'm looking at all these patterns on Etsy and things, and I'm just not seeing what I want. And I was like, well, I've made a few projects at this point. Maybe I can come up with something. So I came up with like my ideal hat, and then I ended up calling it the Mega Palm Beanie. So that was my first design. And I started posting about it on Instagram, and I was getting messages of people like, oh my gosh, the hat is so cute. Where'd you find the pattern? And I was like, oh, you don't need a pattern. I already made the hat. Just come to such and such place and buy it from me. Like, I got you, girl. And I keep getting messages of like, people just want to make this hat. So that was kind of when the switch flipped of like, maybe I have a different customer than I thought. Maybe it's not the craft show customer, the everyday person who doesn't necessarily appreciate this in a way like a seasoned maker would. Maybe my customer is a person who wants to make things from the designs that I come up with. So I went home, I put the pattern into a Microsoft Word document, literally no formatting. I think there's one photo in the pattern, and I put it up on Etsy, and I was like, let's see what happens. So, it's my early days of Etsy, so I still have like my notifications on, and you get the little cha-ching when you sell something. And then the cha-ching started happening like when I was asleep, or, when I was brushing my teeth or whatever. That happened in all times of day. And like, that was just some really nice, like Etsy was genius when they came up with that, because the positive reinforcement is like off the charts. So that's when I got the idea of like, oh, this can be something more than just selling my excess stuff. This can be a chance for me to like really flex my creativity, to learn more about this craft, to like find the things that people want to make and want to use. And like, maybe I can be the person that makes those things. So that was the catalyst. That was the spark.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. But you were working full time at that point.
Oh yeah. At that point, I had finally found a job, but like crochet at that point just became like a hobby for me. It's something I really enjoyed. And I got to the point where most people do, where, you're sitting in front of the TV and you're like, what do I do with my hands? What do I do? So I was like, nope, we're crocheting. That's our thing now. So yeah, crochet was, I had already decided unconsciously that crochet was always going to be part of my life. But it wasn't until the designing opportunity that I was like, ooh, this could be a thing. So like I set up my Etsy shop. I started with the hat. And then when that started to take off, I was like, well, what else at my craft show booth could be like a strong seller? So I started, making some simple cowls and some scarves and other hats and mittens and things like that. So that was kind of the first driver of my designs, what sells at craft shows. But then, craft show season ends. I'm in the Midwest. It's going to get warm eventually. People aren't buying slouchy hats in the middle of summer. So I was able to play around with like shawls and like meshy things and lightweight things, lace weight things. I'm playing around with like cottons and linens and learning about different fibers. So, it just became this like evolution of like, oh, she's turned into a yarn girl. Got it. Like it's like it started to happen. Yeah, just that quick.
And was there a conscious point during this, or were you still just kind of playing around and this was always going to be like a side thing? Like, were you thinking, I want this to eventually become a full-time, or were you mostly just thinking, I'm going to have my career, but I'm going to dabble in this?
I definitely expected to have my career. I expected to work full-time in corporate because at that point I had my master's degree. I'm paying back my student loans. I'm like, I feel like I have to keep my day job so I can pay off these loans. And of course, at that point, I'm having a lot of fun with this, but it wasn't generating the kind of revenue that's like quit your job money. Not yet. So, I thought I was going to keep working. And I say this a lot. I feel like that my entire career has been just like riding the wave, just not having a lot of expectations about what's going to happen next and what I want to do in the future. It's just, how am I feeling right now? And how do I make sure it's a good feeling? So, even then I'm working my day job, but like as new opportunities were presenting themselves in this yarn thing, like I got approached by a local yarn shop owner and she's like, do you want to teach some classes? And I was like, sure. I got, when I started teaching classes with her, she was like, hey, I have this fingering weight yarn. Do you want to try something with it? And I was like, sure. It's just saying yes to everything, just trying new things. And like, I always chalk that up to my Gemini spirit. I don't like repeating things. I always like having new experiences. So with this yarn stuff, everything was new. So it was just like, yes to everything. I'll try it all. And if I don't like it, I won't do it again. If I like it, I'm going to do it over and over and over. Yeah.
Right. Wow, that is so, I love hearing that story just of, I love those stories about how things evolved from really just a hobby into like, I mean, I can only imagine that you could never have imagined where TL Yarn Crafts would be today.
No.
No.
I couldn't imagine where TL Yarn Crafts would be today, even like in 2021 or 2022. Like, even just a few years ago, I didn't know when I would be like moving back to Michigan. I didn't know even after we moved if this would continue being my full-time job or if this would be something else. Like I don't know. I wouldn't call it naive necessarily, but it's definitely a little bit more nonchalant. I just kind of let it flow. And I feel like by releasing some of the grip that I have on knowing exactly what happens next, it just allows me to enjoy the process more and to like be a lot more present of saying, I'm going through this experience. I'm going to do it to my fullest. And then when it's over, I'm going to assess how much I enjoyed this or not to determine if I'm going to do this again. And I never look at an experience like that was a waste of time or that was a failure or anything. No, it's all just a learning experience. I was just trying something out and it didn't work out and that's fine. And I feel that way about my patterns too. Cause like I've released some patterns that I'm like, ooh, this is going to be the one, this is going to put me on a map. And then it's a dud. And I was like, wait, what? And then I'll release something that was like, oh, this is just a quick little stash buster I put together and people go nuts. So it's like, there's no real indicators of what is going to make you successful in a creative field. You just have to do what feels right and what you can put your whole heart into. So, that's my goal. I put my heart into the things that I do. And if it works out, great. And if not, we'll try something different next time.
I love that.
Yeah.
I am so much more in my head, but see, now I'm a Virgo. So it makes sense that I'm in
mom's a Virgo.
And what's the rule? What do we do? What's the plan? What?
Like there is no plan. I know it drives my mom nuts. We work together, obviously, very closely now, and like it's always so funny to see how differently we react to things or feel about things or go about things. And yeah, her Virgo energy comes out.
Your mom's a Virgo.
She is, yes, September
My mom's
3rd.
a Gemini.
Really? That's why.
And I'm always like, why
That's
is your head's always in the clouds, Mom? Why?
yeah.
We have to be real. We have to be realistic about things.
Like, no, I live in the clouds. That's my favorite place
Oh.
to be.
It's my mom will be like, but I love to dream. And I'm like, oh my goodness.
Like,
That is funny. Okay. Speaking of your design style,
yeah.
how would you describe it?
Ooh, oh my gosh, that's so hard. I would definitely describe it as timeless. I
Mhm.
would describe it as colorful.
Yeah.
I do think my designs, I kind of look at them as like template designs, being like, I'm gonna give you the basics. I'm gonna give you the simple shapes, the easy patterns to follow, the smooth lines. And it's almost like I'm giving you a coloring page. And I want you to fill it in the way that you feel most comfortable. So, if I had to, I don't know. I honestly don't know how I describe it. I can describe the design process. I can design where the ideas come from, but like the actual style, girl, I don't know. It's however I'm feeling,
Yeah. And I'm sure, I mean, I see a lot of modern elements with
Mhm.
yours. I see a little boho here and there.
Sure. Yeah.
But yeah, where do you get that inspiration from?
A lot of the inspiration comes from the yarns. Like I love walking into a local yarn store with absolutely no plans, like nothing between the ears. I want the yarn to speak to me, tell
Yeah.
me what it wants to become. I want to be inspired by my materials. And I think it's by, we were talking before about just becoming more educated about yarn and about fiber. And I feel like the more I know, the more ideas come to mind for me. So like currently I'm in a garment phase. I have a raglan like mesh top on my mannequin over here, which like I purposefully put off screen because it's not done, not even close. So I have, that over there. I just finished like this chevron cardigan. I have like this chevron skirt idea. So like all of these things have been inspired by the different yarns. So like the mesh top that I'm working on is with like this sport weight Pima cotton. It's absolutely stunning. And I know the drape is just going to be delicious. So it's going to work really well with mesh because it's going to have that really good flow.
Mhm.
With the chevron skirt that I'm thinking of, I'm working with like one of those fingering weight, like color shifting cotton. So it's got like 6 tiny little strands and then like the colors naturally move. So I can focus on just stitching and let the color do all of the work. So, I go in and out of these phases. And if you look at like the patterns that I've designed and kind of like look at them in groups, there really have been like these really distinct moods that I've been in, and I'm in a garment mood right now, so y'all get ready.
Yeah. And I think that is where, I'm trying to educate myself and I want other people to know about, you might get a comment on a video where they're like, I made this sweater with a budget worsted acrylic yarn and I don't understand why I don't like it.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
I understand why it doesn't look good on my body. And those are the type of things where it's like, okay, it's not that you made the pattern wrong or that you did anything wrong. It really comes down to what would really work with that yarn. And that probably is not going to be that project. Although I am using a budget acrylic yarn for this cardigan,
Yeah.
but it's really open. There's a lot of openness to it and it's not meant to be, it's going to work. But I think knowing the properties of the yarn, like you're talking about, is so important to get the desired effect that you want.
Definitely. Because like you can, it's very easy to find a pattern. Well, I feel like it's easier to go from the pattern to the yarn. And sometimes it's trickier to go from the yarn to the pattern. Like if you try to force a yarn to work with a particular pattern, you could end up really disappointed. Like one of the first sweaters I ever made was out of this really gorgeous crochet sweater book by Janine Mishka of Knits and Knots, and loved the project. But I ended up so the project called for a worsted weight acrylic blend. It was like an acrylic cotton blend. I ended up making it out of a bulky weight, 100% acrylic. And I'm wondering why I'm like boiling in this sweater. Like it's so cute. It's a gorgeous sweater, but I hate wearing it because it's too hot, even on a cold day, because the air doesn't move. Like it's a very textured stitch. Air can't get in and out, right? So if I knew now, if I knew then what I know now, I never, ever, ever would have made that. But I think it's by making those mistakes
Right.
though, right?
Mhm.
To having that moment of like, wow, I made this whole sweater and it's terrible. Why? And
Mhm.
kind of following that thread of why to then understand maybe this was the wrong yarn choice. Sweater,
Right.
I love it, but the
Yeah.
yarn's the problem. Um,
Right.
and sometimes we're a little hard headed. We got to learn the hard way. That's the way that things sink in, and you just know not to make that mistake again.
I made an amigurumi toy with alpaca one time, and I didn't understand why it didn't have structure because I wanted to use a really beautiful soft yarn. It doesn't work.
No,
It doesn't
I'm
it doesn't
sure
have
all of your
structure.
fiber was like trying to escape.
It's like, "Oh, okay. Alright, I'll stick to the cotton blends."
Mhm.
So, and this is you spoke about this a little bit, but how do you choose your color palettes and that feel fresh or current, and, where are you getting those color inspirations from?
Sure. Yeah, it's a combination of things. And I think if anything, crocheting as often as I do, is what really keeps me excited about color. Because like, I always have multiple projects going on. So some of them might be a little bit more neutral, some are a little bit more colorful. So I can kind of keep that energy up. So it's kind of a combination of things. It's probably like three things. One is I have at this point kind of developed this core color palette. These certain colors I keep going back to, my pinks, my soft greens, my, mid-tone blues. I have like my warm neutrals that I love. So, when in doubt, I have the palettes that I know will always work. And so that like a lot of those same colors end up, popping up within TL Yarn Crafts projects. It's one of those things where like people will be scrolling through Instagram and they're like, I knew it was your
Oh,
post
yeah.
before I knew it was you. Like you start to have, that repetition. So that's one part of it. The second part is a lot of experimentation. And I don't always get it right. Like one of the most notable times is like I was building the color palette for one of my year-long blankets for my linen stitch square. And I made the January square and I hated it. It was so awful. Like the neutrals were wrong. I had the wrong blues in there. It was just like because like when I saw the yarns individually in the box, they made sense. The color
Mhm.
palette worked. But once I put it in the project, I was like, this is like you can immediately see which colors don't work and you just like pluck it out. I was like, I need you to go and you to go and you to go. And we have to just like, kind of start this a little bit fresh with like fresh eyes. So it's the trial and error of like maybe getting a color that I don't typically use, putting it with some colors that I do typically use and seeing how I feel about it. And sometimes it's changing the new color and sometimes it's changing the colors that I use all the time. Like stretching out of my comfort zone is not always the easiest thing to do, but then I can end up with something really beautiful. So like more recently, I've been reevaluating my relationship with purple. Me and that color did not get along for a very long time. But it wasn't until I did more trial and error and better understanding how wide of a range that
Mm.
purple has that I'm like, well, maybe I don't like, Barney grape purple, but I love like a really, gorgeous, like creamy lilac color, So playing around with color is definitely important. And then lastly is like finding the inspiration. So I follow several like color themed accounts on Instagram. I am constantly searching for color palettes on Pinterest. I have multiple color inspiration boards going on Pinterest. If I go to the hardware store and I see a paint chip that I'm like, ooh, I need to like find this color, I'll just pull that one paint chip and I'll put it in a stack of chips that I have. And I'm like, these are the kinds of colors that I want to incorporate more. I am obsessed with like all the fashion weeks. So I will, watch those and I want to see not necessarily for like what are the trending colors, but what are the colors that I don't typically, reach for that I could kind of incorporate. So
Mhm.
it's looking for inspiration everywhere. Like my eye is always attuned to like, ooh, that's like a new shade of yellow that I haven't tried. Like maybe we'll give that a go. So just staying open constantly and like surrounding myself with, different palettes and different combinations.
Wow. Yeah, I love
Mhm.
Pinterest too for that because it's endless. There are so many
Yeah.
it's yeah, it's and it helps me to get out of my comfort zone. I also have these, color cubes from Sarah Renee Clark, and they
Mhm.
are
Yeah.
hundreds of color palettes that are curated in these cards, and I'll just sit there and just look
Mhm.
through them, and they are so and it on the opposite side, it'll have this beautiful photograph. So you kind of get the feel of what these colors together, how this is going to give you this, whether it's a fall feeling or cool, or it
Yeah.
has helped me a lot because I'm trying to educate myself about that as well.
Yeah,
Um,
I think that product especially is so, so amazing because it really does take like that experience of being on Pinterest or something and put
mhm,
it in a really manageable, like tangible, tactile experience. So like I
mhm.
saw on one of your videos when you were kind of playing around with the card deck, I was like, ooh, do I need a new toy? Like I didn't end up getting it, but I have recommended it to a lot of people because I think it's just a really great way, if you just need like some quick inspiration,
Yeah,
pull a card out of there. I think
yeah,
it could be a really fun way to like push some boundaries as well, right? Because
it
like,
is.
what if you pull a card with some colors you don't typically use, and you're like, well, these clearly go together. Maybe I
Right.
can make something work here. So I love
Yeah.
that idea.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think she's redone the whole thing. I think the cards that
Mhm.
I have, you can't get them anymore, and I think it's a whole new thing, so I haven't checked it out yet,
Okay.
but let's switch over and talk a little bit about Tunisian crochet and how did you get into that?
Yeah, so that one's a fun story too, and I'll keep it to the short version. So I shortly after I really got bit by the crochet bug. I started traveling a little bit more and I was making all of these friends online. So I was gonna meet up with some of my online friends at Vogue Knit Live in New York. For anybody who's never been, Vogue Knit Live is like this big kind of like industry event. It's a bit like a convention. So there's classes and there's vendors and there's like all these talks and lectures and fashion shows and all kinds of things. And one of the big things they have is like this marketplace and there's all these booths where you can go buy stuff. So I am in the marketplace with my mom and a bunch of my friends, and I kind of peel off from them to go to the restroom. And on the way back to find everyone, I come across this really lovely woman sitting outside of the Malabrigo booth. But what really caught my eye, aside from the fact that she was absolutely stunning, is like she was crocheting with this giant hook and this really big yarn. And she wasn't just regular crocheting, like the fabric she was making. I was like, I have never seen a crochet hook do this before. So I like ran up to her. I was like, "Hi, my name's Toni. I'm a crocheter. What are you doing?" Like I'm just very like really enthusiastic. I was like super young in the craft, so this was all very overwhelming for me. So she was kind enough to like tell me her name was Sarah, and she was like, "I'm doing something called Tunisian crochet," and she gave me like a quick little like 5 minute lesson. So I was like, "Oh, this is so cool." So I was like, "I gotta go tell my friends." So I run back, I get my friends, we come over, we meet Sarah, and she's giving them a little demo too. And they're like, "Oh, that's cool, blah, blah, blah." But in my head, I was like, this is the coolest thing that has ever existed ever. Okay. Like I've never seen anything like this and I can't get over it. So I leave Vogue and I go home and like this technique is still on my mind. And it's like, I need to find more. I need to dig. So right back in the library, I'm going to the bookstore, I'm, Googling things, and I found as many resources as I can about Tunisian crochet. So I essentially spent that whole next year just learning everything that I could. 2017 rolls around and I like start my YouTube channel. My very first video, the Absolute Beginner's Guide to Tunisian Crochet, was like really my attempt at kind of like translating all this excitement and everything that I've learned into like this little 1 hour video. And I'm like, if you guys can do this, you've just opened Pandora's box. Like I'm telling you. So I get like super into the technique. I make my videos, I'm releasing patterns, blah, blah, blah. It was a great year. So I go back to Vogue and I was like, "Ooh, I'm going to go find Sarah and I'm going to tell her about how amazing this technique has been for me for this last year." So I go back to the Malabrigo booth and it was in the same place. That's the thing with Vogue, like a lot of things that have been the same place year after year. I go back to the Malabrigo booth, same guys working there from the previous year. And I was like, "Hey, I learned how to Tunisian crochet from Sarah. She was sitting out here last year. Do you know she's going to be here this year?" And he looks at me like, "Who is Sarah?" And I'm like, "Excuse me, sir." It's like, "She was the gorgeous woman that was sitting out here doing Tunisian crochet. She taught me and all my friends last year. Is she coming back?" And he looks at me completely straight faced and he's like, "I'm sorry, I don't know who Sarah is, but like nobody's gonna be out here teaching Tunisian crochet. I'm sorry." And in that moment, I'm like standing there, like my mouth dropped open. I can feel the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. I'm like freaking out. And I was like, I know I learned Tunisian crochet. And I was with my mom as well. So she was like, "Yeah, girl, I remember. Calm down. It's okay." But I and I've never been able to find her again. I went back to Vogue for years and years and years looking for her. I tell this story everywhere that I go because I'm like, I would really love to find this person
Yeah.
and say thank you to them. But that's really where it all started, that little 5-minute lesson. And then I just, again, following my whims, just going wherever the wind blows me. I was really excited and motivated about that. And it really just hasn't waned. Tunisian crochet is like, it's in my blood now. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And I am seeing some questions about Tunisian crochet, and I want people to know we will open it up to question and answer with Toni.
Okay.
So you'll be able to ask the questions. So what do you think the biggest misconception is about Tunisian crochet?
Geez. You know what? I think the biggest misconception is that it's difficult.
Yeah.
It can be tricky. I think learning anything is tricky, but my friend Gigi, the orange lady.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, one of the things that she says, and it has stuck with me from the first time I heard her say it, she was like, it's not hard, it's just new. And it's like when we are learning new things, especially as adults, we feel like we should automatically be good, especially if we're already good at the adjacent thing, right? If you can already knit, you think you'll be great at Tunisian crochet. If you can already do traditional crochet, you think you're immediately going to be amazing at Tunisian. But it really is its own craft in a lot of ways.
Okay.
Yeah, it uses a hook that feels similar to us, but working with a long hook when you're used to a short hook can be a big, hill to climb. Or working with a bunch of loops under your hand when you're just not used to that can feel really foreign. So you have to give this technique its own space for you to get used to it. But I do not think it is a difficult craft to learn.
Okay.
Particularly if you have one of the other skills. If you knit already in particular, I think Tunisian crochet can be an absolutely beautiful transition to like traditional crochet and vice versa, really. So I think that's the biggest misconception is that it's hard, but like anything else, you just have to allow yourself to be a beginner. You have to, or it will not click. Yeah.
And if you're a Virgo, that is going to be especially hard.
It's hard. And I definitely recognize that. I've been doing in-person teaching in particular over the last, I don't know, it's just shy of a decade now. And I feel for the folks that sit down and they're like, yeah, I got this, no problem. And then they're struggling, right? Especially with those first stitches. And I always say like the further you get away from that first row, the easier it is. But like the hardest part of Tunisian crochet is at the very beginning. And it's almost like by design, right? It's like very fiddly and all the loops look the same. And it's like, am I doing this right? But like, once you get a few rows in, you're able to like see your mistakes and fix things. Your hands are getting a little bit more comfortable. It just takes some time to get used to. I don't think it's particularly hard, but it's a little tricky to start.
Okay.
Yeah.
One of these days I'm going to learn.
You got all the stuff. Do I need to send you some Tunisian crochet hooks too?
I got it all. So if somebody wanted to try, what would you recommend the very first project they start with?
Ooh. Well, if somebody was gonna just start with Tunisian crochet, and I'm assuming you haven't bought my book, I would say go get my book from the library. Just get it from the library before you commit.
So beautiful. Oh my gosh. It is such a beautiful book too.
And it's like, everybody thinks they have a super cute baby, but I think that is a really cute baby.
It is beautiful. I like binding. I mean, binding to me is really important and the binding is really nice. It's just really a beautiful book.
It is. And I feel like it is a truly amazing resource for getting started. I feel like it gives you just enough information to answer the questions you have without overwhelming you. So I would recommend start with either getting my book from the library. I've got, signed copies in my shop, borrow it from a friend. And there are lots of really good beginner projects in there. Some of my favorites are going to be the ear warmer. So there's like a chunky ear warmer in there. It uses all simple stitch, which is kind of like the basic stitch that you first learn. But it's really fun because you make these strips and then you braid them together. So it kind of transforms itself without being like this really complicated project. So it's fun. You're learning the basics, but then you also finish something relatively quickly, and it's really, really nice for gifts. So that would be one of my first favorite ones. If an ear warmer is not for you, there's also a project in there called the Geo Pot Holder, which you essentially make 2 squares of Tunisian crochet, again, in that basic simple stitch, and then you can cross stitch on one of the squares, then you seam them together and it becomes this usable pot holder. Because one of the misconceptions with crochet is like, just, yeah, that's the one. So, if you just have a single thickness of fabric, most crochet stitches are not thick enough to actually be a pot holder. But
Oh,
yeah, you'll burn your hand or you'll burn your
yeah.
countertop or
Yeah.
something. So with Tunisian crochet, though, it creates a pretty dense fabric. And
Oh,
then when you put 2 of those together, you get kind of this sandwiched, very thick material that is perfect for, lifting pots off the stove or to use as a trivet. So I like that one again because it's usable, it comes together in a really fun way, and you also are still just kind of focusing on those basic skills.
okay. Someone did have a question. I want to make sure we answer this one. Is I can actually show it. How does nooking compare to Tunisian crochet?
So nooking is essentially like double-sided Tunisian crochet.
Okay.
So you use a double-ended hook and use a lot of the same like skills and techniques of Tunisian crochet, but you're creating like this double-sided fabric. And I honestly, the more skills you can learn, the better. Like I encourage you to learn how to knit, learn how to crochet, Tunisian, nooking, learn all of it, right? Get like this really well-rounded understanding of the fiber arts because it never hurts to be more educated. So sure, why not? If you've got Tunisian crochet supplies on you, you can do nooking with those. So, and it probably only takes a few minutes to learn, then you got the skills under your belt and you can make all kinds of fun stuff. So sure, go for it.
Yay.
Yeah.
Yay. And then how is designing Tunisian crochet different than traditional crochet?
So one of the biggest differences is like with Tunisian crochet, particularly flat fabric, you don't turn it. So you're always looking at the front side of your fabric. And it becomes a little bit tricky because like when you're designing particularly clothing, you need to do increases, decreases, things like that. Well, with traditional crochet, it's very easy to make mirrored decreases and increases, right? So you add a stitch on the left on this side, add a stitch on the right on that side. Well, with Tunisian crochet, it's a little bit trickier because you're always working from the same direction.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like knitting in that way where you have to have a little bit more technique or a little bit more strategy to making the increases and decreases look the same on both sides. So that might be, if you look at a Tunisian crochet top and you're looking at like a V-neck, the increases on this side might look a little bit differently on that side. And I feel like some people get a bit turned off by that because we're so, I guess, programmed for things looking symmetrical, and I think just in human nature, like symmetry is akin to beauty. But with Tunisian crochet in particular, I think it just becomes this really beautiful, like detail in your project that it doesn't look exactly the same. Aside from that too, Tunisian crochet naturally creates like this very thick fabric, whereas like with regular crochet, you typically have something a little bit more lacy, even with like holes in between your stitches. With Tunisian crochet, by doing the forward and return pass, you close up those spaces between stitches. So you have to just be conscious of like, this is going to create a denser fabric. Do I need to change my hook size? Do I need to play around with the yarn? Do I need to change my stitch? So it's not really like a 1-for-1 from crochet to Tunisian crochet. You do have to be a little bit more intentional.
Okay. Does it create a fabric like knitted fabric where it's very stretchy or no?
No. So with Tunisian crochet in particular, it often will have a lot of stretch vertically, not so much horizontally. Reason being is you have 2 passes with Tunisian crochet, and the return pass, so when you're working the loops off your hook, it's almost like a series of chains. And unless you like go way up on your hook size, just doing a series of chains can sometimes be a little tight. So you're only going to get so much stretch width-wise. And again, that's going to depend on your stitch too, because people might not know this, but there are over 400 different stitches in Tunisian crochet and like lots of variations of those. So even more than that. So, if you're working with like your Tunisian simple stitch, that doesn't have a lot of stretch width-wise, but there's another stitch called the Tunisian full stitch. And that one has a lot of stretch in both directions. So it really, again, it depends on the stitch, and it just takes, some practice playing around with different stitches and different fibers to like get a feel for what's going to be most appropriate for different projects.
Okay, we'll take one more Tunisian crochet question. I thought this was a good one. I just tried Tunisian and it's not hard, but the tension is the problem. I'm an intermediate crocheter, so why is it so tight?
Hmm.
Mhm.
Good question. So there's a couple reasons. So first off, we're talking about how dense of a fabric Tunisian crochet creates. So it's pretty common for you to go up 1 to 2 full millimeter sizes larger than what you would normally use for crochet. And that's to accommodate for how dense the fabric is. Another thing to think about is like when we're talking about tension, you don't turn your work. So you're always working on the front side and you're pulling up loops. So often your work will curl towards you because you're putting a lot of tension on the front of that fabric. So again, that's why we go up on our hook sizes, or we might use a different fiber, or we might switch up the stitch to kind of deal with that curl. Outside of that, there's just like general hand pain sometimes that folks will have, because it is very common for people to like really choke up on that hook because you don't have the same access with your fingers as you do with traditional crochet because you've got all those loops. But what people might notice is like a little bit of pressure on the loops gets you onto the hook. The yarn is only so thick, right? And if you feel like you can't hold on to the hook through the loops, space out the loops and just get onto the hook, and there's things that you can do to be able to soften up the tension in your hands so that you're not like putting this death grip on the hook. And that can cause a lot of problems and really turn people off to Tunisian crochet because it's like, why do my hands hurt? Why do my elbows hurt? Well, you might be using the wrong tool. That's why when I wanted to develop some crochet hooks, I developed a set of wood hooks and I developed a set of metal hooks.
Okay.
Wood hooks have like a warming effect. If you typically use wood hooks, you know that they can be sometimes a little bit more flexible and like really comfortable in the hand. I like a metal hook as well because since Tunisian crochet does create so much more tension, you want a tool with a little bit more slip. So that's why I went with metal because it allows the yarn to glide a little bit more. But going up from that hook 1 to 2 millimeter sizes higher should help with some of the tension issues.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That is very good to know. I really want to focus also on how do you approach teaching, especially beginners, because I think that you are so good at teaching crochet and making it feel accessible and not overwhelming.
Yeah. I think there's a few things. Firstly, I have really held on to that moment when I kind of got reintroduced to crochet and I was kind of teaching myself. Like I remember the things that were frustrating. I remember the things that I didn't realize then that I had to learn. So I remember being a beginner. I remember the frustration. I remember being filled with questions, not understanding why things aren't working. So now when I teach, I'm like, a lot of this stuff is a bit universal. We kind of always have to go through it to like a little bit better. So I'm like, I'm able to answer questions about like, hook materials and tension, how we're holding our yarns, how we weave in ends, how we build different stitches. I'm able to break it down in a way that I know would have made sense to me when I was learning. So I just kind of keep myself in those shoes. The other thing that I do is I try my best not to overestimate what a beginner can handle in one sitting. So like often I will teach a class that's somewhere between 90 minutes and 3 hours. I'm not trying to teach you everything I know about Tunisian crochet in 3 hours. It's impossible.
Right.
I've been practicing this for years, but I want to teach you just enough to make you curious when you go home, to ensure that you're going to finish the project that we started. So I'm like, I want to teach you about tools. I want to teach you about, the one stitch that we're focusing on in this whole class. And I'm going to give you just enough to kind of spark that curiosity. And I think too, with beginners, you have to be willing to go slow. Everybody learns at a different pace. Everybody learns differently. When I teach, I often will have like a document camera over my hand so people can see what I'm doing as I'm saying it. But I also bring my mom with me when I teach because there's usually 1 or 2 people who need just a little bit more help. That is pretty consistent. So that's why it helps to have somebody there. So, for the folks who are able to keep up with me and what I'm doing on the screen, great. And for the people who can't, that's why mom is here. It just really was a matter of repetition and also, just keeping in mind, like a lot of beginners end up having a lot of the same challenges and just being prepared for that.
Yeah. It's experience.
It really is. It really is. But it has to start somewhere. And I truly believe that we all have a responsibility to teach others. Like that's how crafts like
Yeah.
stay relevant and stay fresh. And there's always fun stuff happening. Like when I first got into Tunisian crochet, it was not a conversation, right?
Right.
As I continue to do more and to find, you know, the authors and the designers who were speaking about it, I was like, let's collectively start making some noise here. And now it's become this thing like other designers are getting into. There's books and stitch dictionaries and all kinds of things coming out. And it's that word of mouth and that responsibility to teach each other that ensures that these crafts stay relevant.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I had never heard of Tunisian crochet before you.
Mhm.
And so and now I'm seeing it everywhere.
Yeah.
So I do think, yeah, it is that word of mouth, and it is the tradition of crafts. It is the word of mouth, and it's the grandmother's teaching and the mother's teaching and passing that on,
Mhm.
to those next generations. I have a video coming out tomorrow all about vintage crochet, and,
Ooh.
it was extremely eye-opening, and, I learned a lot. So I'm really excited, and so my mind is really on that,
Can't wait to watch that.
yes. What is your personal favorite from the book? Your
Mm.
favorite pattern?
Oh my goodness. So there's a project in there called the Nisa Poncho, Nisa, and it's
Okay.
this very, very simple, just like layer that you can put over
Oh,
anything. Yes, that
and
is
she's a model. You use her a lot, don't you?
yes, that's Shayra. So Shayra was the very first model that I found when I was in Columbus. And like I feel like she's such a professional. She's so
Oh,
good at what she does, but she's also just a sweetheart. And
yeah.
so like I would call Shayra up like 2 weeks before a shoot and I'm like, hey girl, I know it's last minute, but can you come help me out? And I mean, she never said no to me. She's so sweet.
Aw.
And I feel like a lot of my brand was built off of the beautiful way that she would show off my pieces. I love her. So
Yeah,
the
she's
Nina Concha,
beautiful.
she's
Yeah,
stunning. And
yeah,
she also she takes direction incredibly well. So I was like, you know, I want this to feel easy, breezy, light. Anybody
yeah.
could wear this. And she just takes that and runs with it. So
Mhm.
the Nisa poncho, especially, not only the way that it's built, the stitch that it's created with, the yarn I used, Lion Brand Chainette yarn, which is like a
Oh, okay.
oh, love that stuff. It's like a worsted weight, like blown alpaca blend. It's really, really nice and just created this gorgeous flow, but also imparted a lot of warmth with that piece. So that is definitely my favorite out of the whole book. It's really hard to say because there's like 20 different pieces in there, but that's the one that I wear the most. And
Okay.
yeah, it's my favorite. I reach for it all the time.
Aw.
Yeah.
Um, okay. This is a my own personal question, so it may not help anybody else, but I would love to know, how do you balance
Mm,
designing,
mhm.
video creating, and running a business? How do and you have a husband and a mom, and you
Yeah.
have Pepper. How do you balance everything?
Um, I don't know that I do. I
Okay.
don't know if I do balance it, but I know that I do all of it.
Yeah,
It's honestly like work-life balance. Like I don't know if that actually exists. I don't
yeah.
know anybody who is like super duper passionate about their work they do and super duper passionate about their family and has found a way to actually balance it all. You
Mhm.
just have to adjust your priorities each day. And I don't think I get it right every day. There's always a backlog of emails to get to, and
Yeah.
there's always a series of comments that I would like to reply to. There's always an event that I'm going to have to miss because I'm going to something else. And I don't know, I'm like perpetually a little bit tired. So it's like it's just, you know, you do the best you can. And when you have a passion for the work, like, you know, occasionally you do sacrifice sleep or, you know, you get behind on things or your room is always a little bit messy. Like it's, you know, there are always signs that I don't have it all together, but I also stopped trying to have it all together, you
Yeah.
know?
And
I
so my daughters and I talk about this all the time because they're in their my oldest is 30 and then the other one is 28, and we'll talk about how can you have a clean house, run your business great, exercise, eat healthy, spend time with your friends and your family. How are we supposed to do all and keep your house clean? How are you supposed to do all of that?
I
I
the only trick that I have is like I have really prioritized building a team. in the
Yeah.
last few years. So
Mm.
like I just brought on a video editor. I have a girl that
Oh,
manages yeah, it's and you know what's so wild, and you and I have talked about this before, right? Because we were both editing in the same software, and
yep.
it's like, yeah, we make it work, right? And it looks like we have way more talent than we might actually have. So it's like you do the best you can with what you have until you can do better. And I've gotten to the point where I'm like, you know what, I have started to reprioritize the ways that I want to spend my personal time, but
Mhm.
I haven't gotten to the point where like I want to take things off my plate. So I'm like, you know what, I need to bring more people around this table to eat off this plate because all this work still needs to get done.
Right.
So I have a business manager who helps with my membership. I have somebody in customer service who helps me stay on top of like pattern support emails. I have I have a pattern grader that I just brought on, and she and I are working on our first project together to see what that workflow looks like. I brought on a video editor as well. And then for my personal life, like I have a groomer for my dog. I have a lady that comes and cleans my house once a month because I will not touch the toilets. I can't do it. I can't. So I found these little like
Yeah.
tension points within my businesses and within my life. And I'm like, where do I have the budget to bring on somebody who has the talent and has the time to do this so
Yeah.
that I can then focus on, working on more fun projects or traveling to teach, like the things that only I can do.
Yeah.
So yeah, bringing on a team has been a really huge priority in the last couple of years.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really good advice.
Yeah.
I do want to recognize this is Deanna Stoll. Thank you, ladies. I make garments in amigurumi now. Thank you for the support.
Great.
And I do want to open up the chat for a few questions for Toni. We've chatted so long. I'm like, oh, I'm sure people want to. Okay, this one is an interesting question. And this is from Monster Bun Yarn Crafts. I love that name. My roommates want me to start a channel for my yarn crafts, but I'm kind of scared to. Any tips on how to start a YouTube channel?
Ooh, I think my biggest piece of advice is, especially if you're just getting started, is to like just rip off the band-aid. Just do it. I know you have a concept for your first video. Go ahead and make it. And even if it's not the best video, a year down the line, just take it down and remake it. Like, people have very short attention spans, and the few people who remember like, hey, didn't you make a video like this? Well, you can't find it, so watch this one. So I would say like it's hard to get started, but it's easy once you get going, right? Because you can look back at that video and be like, I loved this, I didn't like this, I want to do this a little bit different. And my other piece of advice is like, don't get hung up on having the best equipment.
Yeah.
You can make a great YouTube video with your phone and a lapel mic.
Absolutely.
Find a window with some nice sun and just start talking. Yeah. So in over time, you'll build up your products. You'll get to understand, the cameras a little bit better and the audio. Maybe you'll get a ring light or whatever, but you can do that over time.
Yeah.
For that first video, work with what you got.
Yeah, I agree. And I think this is your mom's comment.
Mm-hmm.
Start the channel, just do it. You got this.
Yeah, you got this.
Okay, someone has asked about this, and can you explain what nooking is? I don't know anything about nooking. I've seen a nook hook, I guess you'd call it, but
yeah. So I actually have not practiced it myself. I saw a nooking kit in Joanne years ago. But as far as I understand it, nooking is kind of a derivative of Tunisian crochet where you can make a double-sided fabric. So like typically with Tunisian crochet, since you're only working on that front side, it's kind of like knitting in that way where you have like a distinct front side and a back side. Whereas with nooking, kind of on the lines of like working Tunisian crochet, like in the round, you can have usable fabric on both sides of your piece. So, and anybody out there can correct me if I'm wrong, but nooking is essentially using a double-ended hook to create mirrored fabric on both sides of the work.
Okay. And also, I would definitely check YouTube, look up nooking on YouTube. You're going to find people who will be able to explain it, show it, all the things. Sure. This was a great question about Tunisian crochet. When I have stopped Tunisian crochet mid-row, I don't know how to identify if I was doing a forward pass or a return pass. How can one tell?
Yeah, great, great question. This trips people up a lot. So the best way to tell is to look at that first loop that's closest to your hook head. So if you're on your forward pass, that loop is not connected to the next stitch, because when you're building your forward pass, you're working one stitch at a time. None of your stitches are like joined with any other ones. So as you're working that forward pass, that first loop on your hook, if it's just connected to the stitch directly below it, you're on your forward pass. You can keep going forward to the end of the row. If you're on your return pass though, that first loop on your hook is built off of a chain that is then it's in the fabric that's behind your other stitches. So it is joined to your other stitches. So that's the easiest way to tell. But my best advice is don't stop mid-row because even I have made the mistake of like, oh, this looks like the forward pass. And then I go to do my return and now I've got a short row. And that's not what you want. So if you can, complete your return pass, take your hook out and put a locking stitch marker in that loop. So then you don't have to worry about your project unraveling and you know exactly where you were. But if you happen to stop mid-row, that's the easiest way to tell if you need to go forward or back.
Oh, that's great advice. This is very timely. There has been a lot of talk about AI and pattern theft. Are you experiencing this?
You know, funny enough, no. All the pattern theft I've experienced has been by human people.
Oh, oh,
I feel like it's a bit of a rite of passage. We've all got a story to tell about, finding something that feels incredibly similar to our authentic work in somebody else's hands. I have not seen an issue with AI, particularly considering my patterns. But I also haven't gone looking for it. I don't put a lot of my energy there. I'm sure it's very frustrating for the people that it's happened to, but I have a bit of blissful ignorance. I trust that my audience knows the difference between my stuff and somebody else's, and I just kind of stay in my own lane.
I completely agree. Hi, ladies. I'm currently at home, unable to work due to a disability. I've had family members tell me I should sell my crochet garments and handbags. Do you recommending using a site like Etsy?
So I'm going to take a half a step back and say, do you want to sell your stuff?
Oh, that's a good, yeah.
Because there's a big difference between making stuff for fun and making stuff to sell. Like, it is a complete mindset shift, and there are a whole lot of responsibilities that come with selling finished pieces. So you really need to decide if that's something that you want to do. And I'm not gonna encourage or discourage you either way. But just make sure if you decide you want to sell, like, that is an independent decision you have made. If that is the case though, I think Etsy can be a good place to sell. I think it's a great place to start. I have my own qualms with Etsy, and I don't want to discourage you, but like, there's like a lot of fees involved. The AI stuff is like rampant over there. It's tricky to get found in search. It's a lot of work and effort. But let's say you start on Etsy, you're having some success there. I would start thinking about an exit strategy within about a year or two, onto your own website. So I have my shop hosted through Shopify. I've had a lot of success with them, especially on the digital product side. Like, they do the delivery, they handle taxes, they spit out all the documents I need when I need to give it to my tax preparer. I've had a lot of success on Shopify. It cost me about $30 a month, plus whatever little apps and things that I need. So I think that's one of the easiest ways to do it. There's also, I was going to say Ravelry, but no, that's for digital products. If you're talking about physical products, I would also look at, where you can sell them locally. Look at consignment shops, local gift shops as well. You've got a lot of options. Just really, really make sure it's something that you want to do, because any small business owner will tell you, you immediately start wearing so many different hats. Like, you have to learn things that you never would have expected to learn when it comes to like supply chain of getting products in and out. So yeah, just make sure it's something you really want to do and that you'll commit to, because it's a big investment.
Mm-hmm. It really is. That is such great advice. Thank you to Pam Drummond for the support. All right. I'm looking. Oh, any tips for organizing?
Have you seen my room? Am I supposed to give you tips? No, I definitely have some tips. I think, vertical storage is like a crafter's dream. If you can, like, these beautiful shelves and Elise definitely help behind these curtains here. I have some cubbies that I have drilled into the wall. So those are super helpful for me. Under bed storage is especially helpful too. Just don't forget that things are under there. um, I love to make my own storage as well. So I like crochet some baskets or like some bins and things. And I love having crochet in crochet. That's really fun for me. And I think too, a big part of organizing is like making sure you have some awareness of the things that you have. So like periodically cleaning out your stash, getting rid of the things that you don't want, using up yarn that's been sitting there a long time. I think a lot of that goes into organizing as well, because one big part of our craft is acquisition. And you will always be slowly acquiring things. So, there needs to be a system for things to go out the same way there's a system for things to come in. So just kind of having that awareness, I think, is really important to like staying organized.
And I do think using that vertical space is probably the best thing you can do, because you only have so much floor space. But if
Mhm.
you can utilize the vertical, use behind your doors, all of those types of things underneath.
Mhm.
IKEA is such a great place.
Yeah.
Even if you just look at their website, because they are all about organizing for small spaces. I find it helps me to visually see like, oh, I hadn't thought about doing it that way. I could do that even if I don't use the IKEA product. It's
Mhm.
still a great place to get that inspiration for organizing. They're like the best at it.
They are.
Um, I definitely want to make sure that people know about your membership. And this was a question. If we join your membership, will you teach us how to Tunisian crochet?
Absolutely. So one of the great things about the membership is you have access to all of my tutorial videos ad-free and on demand. You can download them to your phone to watch them offline. So if you prefer to learn at 2 in the morning or 3 in the afternoon, we've got these self-guided courses inside the membership. So it takes you through a series of like 5 to 7 videos to like really get the technique down. So absolutely, if you join the membership, you will be Tunisian crocheting in no time. No.
And where can they find that?
Yeah, so my membership is called the Yarn Hive. I actually have on my shirt. It's just covered
Oh,
under my sweater here. So if you go to yarnhivecommunity.com, you'll be able to learn more about what's available in the membership and what comes with membership, and you can sign up for a 3-day trial, kind of poke around. We have a community in there that talks about just like literally everything. We have multiple channels on all these different topics, and then we also have a video library with like thousands of hours of videos in there. We have lots of exclusive videos and patterns in there too. So there's a lot to get into. It really just depends on how involved you want to be. We've got live streams, guest speakers. We do in-person events and meetups, and we've got a book club. We got all kinds of stuff in there. So you can learn Tunisian crochet
wow.
and find like over 1,000 new friends. It's great.
Wow. Oh, that is wonderful. Well,
Yeah.
I'm going to put your YouTube channel back in the chat. So sometimes you think you're subscribed to somebody. You may be watching all their videos. So everybody make sure that you're subscribed to Toni, because we want to get her to that million. I cannot wait to see you with that gold play button.
Oh my gosh, me too. I have the spot for it right above my desk. I want to look at it every day. And it's what's wild is like, it feels like this vanity metric, right? Of like
Yeah.
hitting a million, but like when you've been there in the trenches grinding for years to make it happen. And I know there are so many people who've been with me on that whole journey who like remember when I used to make videos where I was like too scared to put my face in them, and now like I can't stop talking. Like it's been such a journey, and that is just like a little cherry on top to say, hey, you made it, like,
Yeah.
well done. And I can't wait. I can't
Yeah.
wait. I'm so
Well,
excited.
it's so well deserved. You deserve it, and I am so excited. Let's see, where is it right now? It is 995,000. Oh my gosh, that is
So
crazy.
close. Oh,
Crazy, crazy, crazy.
yeah.
Cannot thank you enough for spending some time with us today and just sharing your wisdom and giving us a laugh and helping us to just have a little fun tonight. So thank
My
you,
pleasure.
Toni.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. When you reached out, I was like, "Oh, it's my turn," because I always love watching your interviews. They're really, really great. So I'm
Yay,
grateful
fun.
to have been
Yeah.
invited. This has been great.
Well, thank you all. Thanks so much for spending some time with us tonight. And I'll see you tomorrow on the video, and then we'll do another live next month.
Awesome.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.